शन्नो मित्रः शं वरुणः शन्नो भवत्वर्यमा शन्न इन्द्रो बृहस्पतिः शन्नो विष्णुरुक्रमः नमो ब्रह्मणे नमस्ते वायो त्वमेव प्रत्यक्षं ब्रह्मासि त्वामेव प्रत्यक्षं ब्रह्म वदिष्यामि ऋतं वदिष्यामि सत्यं वदिष्यामि तन्मामवतु तद्वक्तारमवतु अवतु माम् अवतु वक्तारम् ॐ शान्तिः 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 ॐ सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्तिः 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 ॐ यश्छन्दसां वृषभो विश्वरूपः छन्दोभ्योऽध्यमृतात् सम्बभूव समेन्द्रो मेधया स्पृणोतु अमृतस्य देवधारणो भूयासं शरीरं मे विचर्षणं जिह्वा मे मधुमत्तमा कर्णाभ्यां भूरिविश्रुवं ब्रह्मणः कोशोऽसि मेधया पिहितः श्रुतं मे गोपाय ॐ शान्तिः 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 ॐ अहं वृक्षस्य रेरिव कीर्तिः पृष्ठं गिरेरिव ऊर्ध्वपवित्रो वाजिनीव स्वमृतमस्मि द्रविणं सवर्चसं सुमेधा अमृतोक्षितः इति त्रिशङ्कोर्वेदानुवचनम् ॐ शान्तिः 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 ॐ पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते ॐ शान्तिः 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 ॐ आप्यायन्तु ममाङ्गानि वाक्प्राणश्चक्षुः श्रोत्रमथो बलमिन्द्रियाणि च सर्वाणि सर्वं ब्रह्मोपनिषदं माहं ब्रह्म निराकुर्यां मा ब्रह्म निराकरोदनिराकरणमस्त्वनिराकरणं मे अस्तु तदात्मनि निरतेय उपनिषत्सु धर्मास्ते मयि सन्तु ते मयि सन्तु ॐ शान्तिः 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 ॐ वाङ्मे मनसि प्रतिष्ठिता मनो मे वाचि प्रतिष्ठितम् आविरावीर्म एधि वेदस्य मआणीस्थः श्रुतं मे मा प्रहासीरनेनाधीतेनाहोरात्रात् सन्दधामि ऋतं वदिष्यामि सत्यं वदिष्यामि तन्मामवतु तद्वक्तारमवतु अवतु माम् अवतु वक्तारम् Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Bhadrang no Apivataya Manaha. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. One of the reasons why chanting has been given so much importance under Swadhyaya, because when Patanjali speaks of the niyamas, Swadhyaya, depending on the level of the practitioner, it has various meanings. The primary level of Swadhyaya is chanting, to chant. And why is it so important? Is because it is also a basic practice of pranayama. Because you have to have some control over your breath, particularly when a mantra is going on and when a sentence is finished. To reach there, to reach the end of the sentence, some control on one's prana is required. And at least if we look at Patanjali's emphasis is more on prachardana vidharanabhyam va pranasya prachardana, which is exhalation. And in fact, if you look at the most ancient texts on pranayama, Rechaka is always mentioned first. Rechaka, Kumbhaka, Bahya Kumbhaka, external Kumbhaka, then Puraka, then Kumbhaka, internal Kumbhaka, and then again Rechaka. So the cycle starts with Rechaka, exhalation. It was only later, in the later yoga texts, that the cycle started to be started with Puraka, which means inhalation. More emphasis, and even in the first chapter of where Patanjali speaks of what's the English word for parikarma? Keep on forgetting it, when you no, not rub, but when you, such as the surface of a disc to make it into a mirror. Polishing, yes. The polishing of chitta, the polishing of the mind content. The first thing he mentions is friendliness, compassion, joyfulness, and forgiveness. And then the second thing that he mentions is prachardana, exhalation and retention of prana. So there also his emphasis is more on prachardana, which means on, yes?
In Chinese word, the phrase, it's exhalation first.
Exhalation first.
Exhalation first, then inhalation.
Okay.
The Chinese word.
Okay, so it's first exhalation, who, and then she.
When you talk about this, I realized, wow, we also said this.
Say this first. Very interesting. Very interesting. Yes, that's very interesting because the ancient texts amazingly always start with Rechaka. It was only later, Hatha Yoga Pradipika, etc., 15th century, they start with Puraka first. Otherwise, the emphasis is more on, always on Rechaka, and the mantras are pronounced with Rechaka. So it's really, sorry?
We start with exhalation.
With exhalations first.
And because we say exhalation makes you quiet.
Precisely.
Relaxing and like this. And when you chant, when you really chant, I see this when I chant the Bhagavad Gita, it makes me completely quiet.
It makes you completely quiet, yes. It really calms you. Yes.
Not only really mentally, emotionally.
Yes. Indeed. indeed. That's what happens. And so sometimes when you reach Shrutam me ma prahasiranena dhite nahoratrat sandadhami, then it's like really testing. Not also because we have to reach the end, so then quickly pronounce it. No, with the same rhythm, but in the same breath, without stopping exactly where one needs to stop. There, the break has to be done. Then it becomes deep breathing, diaphragmatic breathing, which is therefore also very important as a practice for vocalists, vocal musicians, because they have also to maintain the flow of breath for a very long period. So, yes, in any case, we are concerned with the deeper meanings of these mantras, and we had studied in our previous session, we had studied the 8th mantra, which was the tiniest of all the Shanti mantras, and one of the two most ancient mantras out of all these 10. Really, with number 8 and number 9, we are really going to the very origin of spirituality, of these deeper teachings on the Indian subcontinent, because the kind of rishis that have given us these teachings, I mean, last time, for example, I said that 3,500 years old, but that is really only the latest date that is ascribed. This is not, first of all, dating in India has always been very problematic. So, but these are the latest dates ascribed to this collection of teachings. Some very well-established scholars would say that they are 10,000 years old, even more, but somewhere between 10,000 and 3,500. And even those who say that they are 3,500 years old, they simply mean to say that they were brought together under this present collection of 10,500 mantras 3,500 years ago. That's all what it means. This doesn't mean that the individual mantras were only 3,500, even according to them. So they are really what, when we look at these mantras, we are particularly number 8, number 9, we have really approached the Gomukha. You know, Gomukha is where Ganga comes out from the glacier, the very origin, to reach there. It's really like that. So the previous mantra, the smallest one, the smallest of the Shanti mantras, which the masters usually pronounce in the beginning of a discourse, if you have very few minutes for your discourse. If you are given like 5 minutes or 10 minutes to speak, then because the tradition is, and I think this tradition was started, at least emphatically started by Patanjali himself, that he used to say that whenever a teaching starts, you should start it with the pronunciation of an auspicious word, auspicious sound. So for example, we start the teachings with Om, or with a short prayer to Sage Patanjali himself, or any kind. This is a very traditional thing that is followed to the letter in most traditional settings here in India. And I would say I think it is quite common in various religions also. I mean, for example, the Quran starts with Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, with the name of God, the Supreme Merciful. So various traditions have this tendency of what we call Mangalacharana. What we pronounce in the beginning of a class, it has a very specific word, and it is called so what the verses that are pronounced, for example, yogena chittasya padena vacha malam sharirasya cha vaidyakena, at the beginning, technically in Sanskrit it is called mangalacharana, to pronounce something auspicious, to pronounce something auspicious. And it is Patanjali in his work on grammar that he says that teachings which start with an auspicious sound are retained longer by the students and help the student to evolve further, to evolve, to expand. So the idea is that these Mangalacharanas, they calm us down, bring us into the present moment so that we can focus better on what is being conveyed. So that is the idea behind Mangalacharana. Mangala Acharana. So when you have only 5 minutes to speak, then you can't do a Mangalacharana which lasts for 5 minutes. So then you do a small Mangalacharana, such as Om Bhadram No Apivatayam. And it's kind of nice blessing. May everyone's mind be directed towards what is good, which means radiant and pleasant. What else can we wish for everyone else? So it's a beautiful. That comes from the 10th book of the Rig Veda, this most ancient collection of teachings, the 10th section. It's the 10th section. In English we call it the 10th book, but in the text itself it is called the 10th circle, because the text itself is divided into 10 mandalas. Mandala is the orb of the sun. So 10 mandalas. The text is divided into 10 orbs. 10 orbs, 10 cycles, 10 orbs. And this one, the 8th one, as you can see, the numbering suggests at the end 1021, which means that it's from the 10th orb, 20th hymn, first mantra. And in the same way, this one that we are now about to study, the next one, the 9th one, is from the first orb. First orb. Usually modern historians believe that the central ones are the most ancient ones, which means that the text was collected like a sandwich. So 1st and 10th are the most modern sections, 9 and 2 less modern, then 8 and 3 less modern, then 7 and 4 ancient, and 5 and 6 the most ancient. So that is how the text was compiled, the text of 10. So now, what the previous mantra, the 8th mantra, said, that impel our mind towards the auspicious, so which means direct our mind towards what is good. This is what was said in the 8th one. That is what Maharshi Vimada, the seer of that mantra, declared in the 8th mantra. Now, the problem is, for him it is good, because in his case, for him that mantra is more than enough. Why? Because his senses follow the mind. That is the practice of pratyahara. What is the result of pratyahara? The result of pratyahara in Patanjali's understanding is when the senses follow the mind. That is what pratyahara for Patanjali. If you look at his definition of pratyahara, The yama, niyama, asana, pranayama, pratyahara. The fifth limb of yoga after pranayama is to make the senses follow the mind. So for him, it is perfectly fine. In our case, the situation is the opposite. Our senses don't follow our mind follows the senses. Otherwise, we would become Hrishikesha. People come to Hrishikesha to become the lord of their senses. That is the meaning of the word Hrishikesha. Hrishika, senses, their lord. So, for him, that small mantra is more than enough. But for us, I think we need a little bit more. We need to direct our senses, directing our mind towards Bhadra, towards the good, the radiant, the pleasant is not enough. We also need our senses to direct towards it. Because when our senses are directed towards it, then our mind will follow naturally. So, that is how we come to this 9th mantra. This 9th mantra is a very popular, very, very popular mantra. Number 2 is extremely popular. Number 5 is extremely popular. And number 9 is extremely popular. Why I say it is extremely popular, that it is generally recited, at least judging from Rishikesh, the place where we are, whenever a special guest, a distinguished guest arrives in any ashram, these mantras are recited as a welcoming mantra. So they can be recited if a distinguished guest arises at home, in our yoga center. Say somebody arrives from India and you recite these mantras, they will be in bliss. So that is one of the applications of this mantra. It is called Swasti Vachana. Swasti Vachana means it is referred to as Swasti Vachana, to recite Swasti, to recite the well-being of the guest. So you are like, for example, when a guest comes, then my teacher used to say, okay, it is your duty. He would select one of the students, and it is your duty to do Swasti Vachana, which means recite this mantra. So, Swasti. That's how it is referred to in Sanskrit. Swasti Vachana. Vachana means pronunciation, and Swasti I will explain a little bit later. For the time being, because the word Swasti occurs in this mantra, that's why it is called Swasti Vachana, to pronounce Swasti as a welcoming gesture for a very distinguished, special guest. Now, let us talk a little bit about the seer of this mantra, because we have been speaking every time about the person to whom these mantras were revealed. These two mantras, the seer of these two mantras is a very, very prominent figure from extreme antiquity. His name is Gautama. That's his name. And his father's name, not so important, but that was Rahugana. But his name, you want me to? Exactly, I'm coming. Yes, I'm coming to that. Yes, yes. That's why I said he is a very, very prominent figure in extreme antiquity. Gautama. Gautama means, Go means a ray of light. Go means a ray of light. And Gautama is the superlative of that. So Go, a ray of light, Gotara, a better ray of light, and Gautama, the best ray of light. So it's the superlative of the ray of light. A beautiful name. All these rishis have very meaningful and very beautiful names. He is listed traditionally amongst the 7 most respected rishis, the 7 wise sages of extreme antiquity. And this is very interesting because somehow later on also, and why I say later on, because at least to my understanding, the Greeks also came up with the idea of the 7 wise sages in 6th century BC. Hoi, Hapta, Sophoi, as they were called in Greek language, the 7 wise men, the great philosophers, as the very origin of deeply respected by all philosophers, lawmakers of ancient Greece, the 7 wise men of ancient Greece. And the Vedic traditions had this extreme ancient tradition of the 7 rishis, about whom the Buddha also speaks with tremendous respect in his Pali teachings. In his Pali teachings, these 7 rishis are mentioned. He is one of them. The others are Bharadwaja, from Bharadwajasana. Kashyapa is there. Then Gautama is the 3rd one. Atri is the 4th one. Vishwamitra the 5th one. Jamadagni the 6th one. And Vasishtha of Vasishthasana is the 7th one. So 2 of them clearly have their names also attached to asana. Bharadwajasana and Vasishthasana. Gautama was Vishwamitra also. Yes, Vishwamitra. 3 of them. 3 of them have their names attached to asanas. Kashyapasana is there. Okay. So I was, okay. So Kashyapa. Yeah, so 4 of them. Just Gautama and Atri, these 2 are missing. This one and Atri, like Dattatreya. He was the son of Atri, Dattatreya. Yes, eh? Okay, Abhi's son. Okay. Yes, Atri. Atri means someone who is beyond the 3 gunas. Who has raised beyond the 3 gunas. So, even in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna refers to them respectfully. As I said, the Buddha refers to them respectfully. And the Buddha himself, it seems, came in the family of Gautama. That's why he is referred to as Siddhartha Gautama. Gautama means the progeny of Gautama. There is a difference. Gautama, and in Pali, though it is Gautama. In Pali it is Gautama, but in Sanskrit properly it is Siddhartha Gautama. Gautama, there is slight difference. Gautama are the progeny of Gautama. So there is some difference. A-U and O. Gautama and Gautama. So the Buddha is referred to as Siddhartha Gautama because he supposedly came in the family of Gautama. So Gautama would have been the seer would have been one of his ancestors. And also in Jainism, the chief disciple of Mahavira, Indrabhuti Gautama, he was also a progeny. He was also in the family of Gautama. That's why he also has the surname Gautama. Because as I said a few classes earlier, Buddha was the first one to give teachings to the masses. Before him, it seems that there was this practice of teaching to the masses was not present. We don't have any evidence which shows that teachings were given to masses. Even Mahavira, who was just really a contemporary, but a little bit senior than the Buddha, but a contemporary of the Buddha, he too, it seems, gave teachings only to one, his chief disciple, chosen out of many, so he used to impart teachings to him only. And his name was Indrabhuti and surname was Gautama, because he was a progeny of... approximately the 5th century philosopher of one of the 6 philosophical systems in the Vedic traditions, the atomist philosopher, who is completely atheistic, which means does not see a need for God in his philosophical system, and is the atomist of ancient Indian philosophy, of the Vaisheshika philosophy. The founder of that philosophical system, Kanada, who was also known Akshapada Gautama. He was also, again, a Gautama, one of the children's family from progenies of Gautama. So you can see how Gautama's, how should I say, not successors, but what would you call the descendants? Yes, lineage. The descendants, the lineage, they have very, very important places. But let's talk a little bit more about him, about Gautama, the father, the seer. We don't know much about his personal life, as it is the case with most of the seers of the rishis, because they come from extreme antiquity. What we know is that he had 2 sons. One was Vamadeva, again Vamadevasana. So his father's name is not attached, but son's name is there. And Vamadeva is again a very prominent figure. Also in the Upanishads, he is celebrated with tremendous prominence. The reason is that he claimed that he had acquired enlightenment in the womb of his mother. That is one of his declarations, that I came to realize the truth when I was in the womb of my mother, Garbhe, when I was in the Garbha, in the womb. And in any case, that's a great declaration. But the unique thing that Vamadeva gave to the Vedic traditions was the worship of consciousness within. That was a unique thing that he gave. Before that, the rishis used to worship consciousness, omnipresent consciousness, in the sun as the source of life and light. So they used to see the abode of that universal consciousness within the sun, but he brought it down and said, no, it's here in my heart. Look here, you will find it here. So that universal essence, in his teachings, he emphatically points this out, that it doesn't make sense to search for it anywhere else. Look within yourself. So while the ones before him gazed towards higher up, he gazed at himself. So that was, and then it is later in the Ishavasya Upanishad that Dhyanga the rishi, he unites both through the mantra Soham, that principle which is in the sun, that is what I am. We are both one and the same. My essence and the essence of the origin of life and light on this earth, we both are one and the same in essence. So Vamadeva was one of his sons, a very great name. And the other son's name is Nodha. He's little known, not heard, but his teachings have also been collected into the most ancient collection of teachings. Vamadeva as well as Nodha. So father and both sons, their teachings have been collected. There are some later legends also about him, and they are about one of the Kumbh Melas that take place, because Kumbh Melas take place in 4 places in India. One is right now going on at the confluence of Ganga and Yamuna, the river of knowledge and the river of devotion. Another Kumbh Mela occurs at Nasik. Nasik, which is not far from Pune, it's in Maharashtra, and it is on the banks of the Godavari river, where there is a very ancient temple of a very big Shivalinga, Shiva, one of the Jyotirlingas, one of the 12 most sacred lingas of India, and it is believed that he had his ashram there. So later legends geographically locate this person to Nasik, which is in Maharashtra. So it seems that Gautama, Vamadeva, Nodha, their mother, they lived in an ashram which was near Nasik, near not far from Pune. Yes, not far. आप गए थे ना, वहीं तो गए थे ना. Ekata Shri, 6 hours. Yeah. Ekta and her mother, they had gone there. So, one last thing about his life is something that is quite often mentioned in the Vedic teachings, is that he was lost in the desert. So desert is not far from there. Rajasthan, that's all desert area, so he would have been traveling, and he got lost in the desert. And he was dying of thirst in the absence of water, when through some of his hymns he asked for help, and the higher forces, the luminaries, came down, dug a well for him, and he drank that water and was free from thirst. I think it's why this story is celebrated again and again, because it is deeply symbolical. It is deeply symbolical if you look at the word for thirst in Sanskrit and you make the connection. Thirst, Trishna, is the word that the Buddha sees, tanha, desire, as the very source of all suffering in this world. And the idea is that only after we dig a well, and who dig those wells? Who are the ones who dig that well within us? If you remember our discussion that we were having when we were studying the Bhagavad Gita, the Daivi, the divine properties, fearlessness, compassion, non-violence, all these properties that Krishna listed, when they are cultivated in one's life, the radiant qualities, then that well. And what a well does not bring water from somewhere else. The well is there. In the desert itself, the water is there in the desert itself. You don't have to go anywhere else. Where you are dying of thirst, there itself, if you just dig deep within yourself, you find those waters that quench our thirst. So that is what he did, and that's why even Patanjali, for example, in his teachings, he uses the word vitrishna, someone who is free from thirst, for a yogin whose thirst is quenched through the yogic practices, through finding the water that is to be found within, which quenches the thirst, the desire for all other things. So it has to be the whole story about Gautama again and again celebrated, that he was the one for whom the radiant beings dug a well, with the help of which he quenched all his thirst. Again and again when you hear this story, this is what he means. And I think the Upanishads are very clear that these 7 rishis, even if they were historical characters, it's not important. These 7 rishis are within ourselves. In fact, these 7 gates, which are in our face, 2, 2, 2, 7. And a hidden 8th is also there, because you taste as well as you speak. So that hidden 8th is also there, but apparently there are only 7. So these 7 doors through which we experience the external world, they are the 7 rishis. They are symbolically referred to as the 7 rishis. I would have to look up which one Gautama stands for. I don't remember now the exact correlation of the 7 with them. But it comes in the Upanishads. Okay. The context of this mantra is also very, very beautiful. The context of this mantra is, as you can see, this is the 6th and the 8th mantra. If you look at the first mantra, not in this, because I'm talking about the original context from which this mantra is taken. So you won't find the first mantra in here. It's the original collection of teachings in the hymn, the first mantra there. It's very, very beautiful. Let radiant thoughts, radiant inspirations come to us from all sides. That is how he starts with his hymn. The same word Bhadra is used. Bhadra, which I explained in my previous class in great detail, simply means good, equal to good. What is good? What does good mean for them? It means radiant and pleasant. Not radiant, which causes suffering, because scorching heat is also possible. And you can have something pleasant, which is also dark. So you need both, radiant and pleasant. That which is pleasant and radiant. Combined together, you get good. And that is what the Sanskrit word Bhadra, which was already used in the previous mantra that we studied in the previous session. He uses also that word and says that let such Bhadra, which means radiant and pleasant, which means good thoughts and inspiration, come to me from all sides, as long as they don't cause pride. Let them come unhindered if they uproot my vices, if they uproot my ignorance. So that is how he starts the hymn. And it is within that hymn, another thing that I also like about that hymn is his referring to the mother, to earth as the mother. Tan Mata Prithvi, this mother, this earth is my mother, and Tat Pita Dyauhu, and that realm of light is my father. So he speaks of earth as his mother and the realm of light, which impregnates Mother Earth and constantly nourishes life through its light, through its energy, which it transmits constantly. So even in a very, very physical sense, forget about the deeper spiritual sense, but even in a very, very physical sense, it makes complete sense that Mother Earth is our mother and the light is our father. So that is the context of this mantra. And the mantra is not addressed to any particular form of luminary. The previous mantra that we studied, the 8th one, was addressed to Agni, the deity of light. But this one is addressed to all manifestations of the same principle. As all the manifestations were seen of the same principle, the text itself, it is nearby this mantra that the master makes it clear that existence, Sat, is one, but the wise express it in many ways. The worshippers worship it in various forms. So rather than addressing it to any specific form, he just says all luminaries all forms that are worshipped by all the different traditions. This is directed to all of them, who for the Vedic masters were simply manifestations of one prana, of one life force, active within the body and active without. So it's just directed towards that, towards all those forms. Now, what is the subject of this mantra? Particularly the first one, very interesting. The three monkeys of Japanese Buddhism. That's precisely the subject of this mantra. You know, even in WhatsApp, you have the signs. Yes, they originate from Japan. Mitsaru, Kikazaru, and Iwazaru. That's the name of these three monkeys. See no evil, hear no evil, and speak no evil. That's the meaning of these three monkeys. And because they are depicted on various shrines in Japan. So they come originally from there. Here the statement is, when you have to depict it, it's negative statement. Hear no evil, see no evil, and speak no evil. He is giving the positive side. Speak what is radiant. See what is, good. Speak what is good. Say what is good. And hear what is good. That is basically the subject matter of these mantras. May we hear what is good. Good means radiant and pleasant. May we see what is good, which means radiant and pleasant. May we speak what is good, which means radiant and pleasant. So this is the subject matter. But the mantra can be beautifully pictured by these three monkeys, because they are precisely, that's what they are saying. As a child, earlier when I was at the monastery, I once made a joke with one of my colleagues. I said, we have to recite these mantras to our guests so that when they come to our place, they see nothing evil, they hear nothing evil, and they also say nothing evil. They see only the good. That's why we recite, we welcome them. That was the devil Siddhartha. Who always still is awake somewhere. Okay, let's pronounce this mantra. Little I realized that we were in fact, we were supposed to speak about ourselves. That when we are welcoming a guest, then we will not see anything evil in you, we will not hear anything evil about you, and we will not say anything bad about you. You are our guest, you are like our God, so we welcome you with an open heart. That is in fact what was meant. Okay, let's pronounce the mantra. Om Bhadrang Karnebhihi Shrinuyama Deva Bhadrang Pashyema Akshabhir Yajatraha Sthirair Angai Tushtuvansas Tanubhir Vyashema Devahitam Yadayuhu Swasti Na Indro Vridhashravaha Swastinaha Pusha Vishwavedaha Swastinas Tarkshyo Arishtanemihi Swastino Brihaspatir Dadhatu Om Shantihi 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 Om Bhadran Karnebhi Shrunuyama Deva Bhadran Pashyemakshabhiryajatraha Sthirairangaistustuvangsastanubhirvyashema Devahitam Yadayuhu Swasti na Indro Vridhashravaha Swasti nah Pusha Vishwavedaha Swasti nastarkshyo Arishtanemihi Swasti no Brihaspatir Dadhatu Om Shantihi Shantihi Shantihi. It's not too big stretch of an imagination to imagine when, for example, the Buddha or Mahavira would reach the homes of certain ones of their followers. It would have been very common for them to be invited into their homes by reciting these mantras. It's not too stretch of an imagination, because Swasti Vachana, particularly when you welcomed your teacher at home, Swasti Vachana was done with, it was very, very common. So I can't imagine that it would not have happened at the time of the Buddha, because there are clearly instances, even before the Buddha, when this was happening. So,
Even when in the Havana,
yeah, invite the deities. Yes, when we invite a deity, Avahana, there also in the invitation, when you invite the omnipresent into the statue in front of you for the sake of worship, there also. So whenever you invite someone, these mantras are pronounced Swasti Vachana. The second mantra is about Swasti. As you can see, it's about Swasti. And because Bhadra, good, that which is radiant and that which is pleasant, that leads to Swasti. Now, what is the meaning of Swasti? These are again extremely, extremely ancient symbols. First of all, Swasti, it's two words. Su means good, and asti means being, to be. Like is in English. What is is? What is ist in German? Or I think even in French and Spanish, the S. Yes. So it's the same in the European root. Su asti, good being, to be in a good state. So Bhadra, the good, which is radiant and pleasant, leads to a state of Swasti, good being. That's what Swasti means. Swasti is another name of non-destruction, the absence of destruction. To be in a state of, that's how the ancient masters, 6th century grammarians, they have explained swasti. Swasti is another name for non-destruction, for good being. So a peaceful, blissful state of being. And as this was deeply related to light, and light comes from the sun, and the sun is pictured as a disk, and also the masters, they speak of, first of all, the wheel of time, and then within that universal wheel of time, the Upanishadic masters also speak of 7 distinct wheels. I'm not getting now into 7 distinct wheels. I will come back to this discussion a little bit later. For the time being, it should be enough for me to say how the symbol of swastika came into existence. So swasti is the state of being, and swastika, when you put the ka at the end, it becomes the word for the symbol of well-being. So that's, if you add ka to it. It's an extremely ancient symbol. If you just look at this Wikipedia article on swastika, you will see how universal and how extremely ancient it is in all the Indo-European parts of the world, which means from India up to Europe. And even up to the 19th century, even amongst the British, it was very common to have the swastika mark on bridal jewelry and clothing. Very, very common. That's how common it was. Many Christian saints are depicted with swastika as ornaments. It, unfortunately, as everyone knows, that because of its universal nature and because of its greatness, it was taken up by the worst regime that ever came into existence in human history, the Nazi regime, and that's what gave swasti the most beautiful, the most ancient, and the most universal symbol, the worst name. That's very, very sad, but unfortunately it's the reality, and that's why today this symbol is completely a no-no in most of the Western countries. Yet in India, it is deeply related to non-violence, it is deeply related to protection, it is deeply related to non-destruction. Ji.
That's why swastikasana, that's sukhasana.
Yes, they say. Yes, yes.
And in villages, in every
Every house, temples, it comes in fact, it's very simple. If you make a wheel, you get it. Whatever the direction is, this direction or that direction, it basically comes from a wheel. And if you look at this word arishtanemi, towards the end of the second, the one who has the rim of a wheel which cannot be destroyed. So it is an epithet of the sun, but you can see how the symbol came into existence. The idea of the rim, you know rim. This is the rim. If you have a chariot wheel, the rim. And the masters, very ancient times, they used to say that this rim, which cannot be destroyed, is the rim of non-violence. Ahimsa is the rim of non-violence, which protects a yogi. So that is the protection of complete non-violence, the source of supreme dharma. So this ring symbolized ultimately total non-violence, total fearlessness.
Biggest protection.
It's the biggest protection. So you can see how also, yes, it's again, this symbol is so, Om was sort of a secret symbol. So Om was given, today Om is very, very famous, everybody knows it, but this was not the case. This was the most widely popular symbol. Om was still, you had to have an understanding of what Om means, and if you look at Mandukya Upanishad, it has a very deep significance. Swasti is very, very universal, very, very universal and extremely ancient. That is why we find it in extreme ancient, whenever people have done excavations of sites, not all around the globe, but between India and Europe, everywhere, this sign has been excavated, has been found. So it's that wheel of protection. For the Vedic masters, for the Vedic commentators, that wheel of protection symbolized ahimsa, non-violence. And that is why I think in the Jaina tradition, it is seen most prominently. It's there, it's in the Buddhist teachings, you will find it in Japan, in China, everywhere it is there when Buddhism went there. But in India, most prominently, it is in Jainism. For the Jaina, it's really the religious mark, which is the most non-violent tradition, because they relate it directly to non-violence, like the Vedic masters. So, what's the word? Santyog. Okay. Santyog. That's the word that they use for it. Yes. Yes. So, just to give an idea of the symbol, and we will come back to these two mantras again in our next session. We'll understand, we will read the translation, and I will explain the mantra a little bit more in greater detail, but let's do that in our next session. Any questions? So at least we know swastikasana.
Oh, I saw the notebook. It's a round notebook. So is it related to you said the mandala is like sandwich? The O is in the middle there.
Which notebook?
I saw some in Tapawan. The notebook is a round.
Round
So I'm
notebooks.
thinking maybe
Okay.
it's
Someone is very creative.
for writers. Yeah, it's a round. So I
Round.
feel-
That's very nice. Yes, someone is being really creative. Yes. But at least, yeah. So Vamadevasana has now some more clarity, and Swastikasana and Sukhasana will have some more clarity for us with this mantra. Okay, so let us conclude. सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः सर्वे सन्तु निरामयाः सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु मा कश्चित् दुःखभाग् भवेत् ॐ शान्तिः शान्तिः शान्तिः. My humble salutations to you.